Okay, so lately I've been getting a lot of repeating questions coming from users that have been asking questions about some previous tutorials that I have done, and apparently I have missed some steps along the way and kind of skipped over a few things, and I think that's where the confusion is coming from. I think a lot of my followers that are viewing my tutorials are actually beginners at Cinema 4D, and the steps that I left out were things that I thought weren't important, but apparently they are. So what I'm going to do is go over some of these questions and just kind of walk you through some of the steps that I have missed, and hopefully that will answer the problems that a lot of you have been having. I'm also going to be going over a couple other questions that I seem to be getting a lot of. So let's first start out with the MP3 Player tutorial. There was an issue with a lot of people asking about two parts of it. One of them was the extrude inner tool. They were having problems with that. And the second one was with the modeling mode. So let's first start out with the extrude inner tool. So I'm just going to quickly just put a shape together to mimic the MP3 player. Okay, and the idea was that we wanted to create a inner extrusion that's going to give a bit of a line that's going to separate, to give the illusion of a front and back section to this MP3 player. Otherwise, right now it looks like a solid piece, but we want a line that's going to loop around the center of the body to give the illusion that there's a front section and a back section, or front and back plates. So to do that, went into polygon mode and brought up the loop selection tool, and I always use the shortcut U and then L, but you can always go to selection, loop selection, and we want to loop select those polygons there, and you can see it loops all the way around. And now this is where the problem was occurring with a lot of people. So if you go to the extrude inner tool, and what we're going to be doing is making an inner extrusion with this loop selection. So if we click and drag to the left, it starts to extrude inner. But you can see here on this corner, and I'm just going to turn the hypernerve off so we can see this a little better. You can see on the corner here that it's not a continual inner extrude over this corner piece and down. It's actually separating, and now we're getting two separated inner extruded polygons here, and the same thing is happening on this corner over here, and of course the bottom corners as well. So when we turn the hypernerve on, now you can see we're getting this ugly looking corner there, and that just isn't going to cut it. So what we need to do is change a few settings for the tool. So you notice that the default maximum angle setting here for the extrude inner tool is set to 89 degrees. Now sometimes you can take this up to 90 degrees and that will fix the problem. However, in this case 90 degrees isn't going to work. So we need to take this up, and I'm just going to say maybe about 110. And now when we do an inner extrusion, now you can see there's a continual loop over this corner, which looks a lot better. Okay, now onto the extrude tool, and you notice the maximum angle for that is set to 89 degrees as well. So if I'm just going to turn the hypernerve off. If we extrude, you can see what just happened there on that corner. It's actually not going all the way around that corner, so we need to take this up as well. Now sometimes, just like the extrude inner, going to 90 degrees might fix the problem. In this case it's not, so we need to take that up to about 110 as well. And now we're going to make an extrusion, and now we've got the extrusion that goes all the way around. Alright, so that answers that question. The next part was the modeling mode. Some of you were saying that you were having problems with one, I think it was the last part of the MP3 modeling tutorial, On the front we were moving points around, and you were telling me that when you were moving the points that the lines between each point were actually rounded and curved, and you were not getting this blue bounding box that goes around the model itself. So in order to fix that, you need to get out of isoline editing mode. Now currently I am not in that mode, but to get out of it you're going to have to hit Alt-A or go to Tools, use isoline editing. And if we do that, now you can see the mode has just changed, and now the lines in between the points are now rounded. And it's actually beginning to pull down on this one here, and it's going to affect the line below it as well. So to get out of that, just hit Alt-A, and now you're back in the normal mode. Okay, so moving along, the next one deals with placing a video on an object that that you want to use with the Explode plugin, or not necessarily you have to use it with the Explode plugin, but how do you place video on an object? Well, it's very simple. It's just like placing any other texture on an object. So in this case, the question was coming from that exploding Apple Soldier video that I did, where I blew him up using 6 or 7 different methods. So let's just, for the sake of this, let's just create a cube. And let's make it widescreen. So I'm going to go into the cube, and size for the X we're going to say 1280. For the Y will be 720. And the Z, the thickness, we'll just take that down a little bit. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, so we have a 16:9 widescreen monitor here. Doesn't look like a monitor, but you get the idea. Okay, so we'll make it editable. Go into polygon mode, and we're going to select that front face, that front poly face there. Going to go to the Extrude Inner tool, because in real life a monitor, the screen for the monitor does not cover the entire face of the actual monitor body itself. So we need to make an inner extrusion. Bring that down. Okay, that looks pretty good. And you can do an extrude if you want to, just to kind of add some depth to it. Just take it in a little bit, something like that. So we need to make a set selection now for this polygon. So be sure that it's selected, and then go to Selection, Set Selection. I already have the command here in my little toolbar. A set selection tag will now appear here in the Object Manager, and the name is Polygon Selection. Now that's just the default name. I like to name it to something else, so we're just going to call this Screen. Okay, so let's double click down here to create a new material. This one here is going to be called Body. Go into the color, and let's make it a dark gray color. Make another material, and since this is going to be a monitor screen, we're going to use the luminance channel. So we'll turn off color, specular, go into the luminance, and this is where you need to load up your image if you're going to use an image. Now if you're going to use a movie, Cinema 4D will recognize AVI files, MOV files, but I usually like to work with image sequences. Now if you don't use image sequences, you don't have to use that. You can actually use the movie files, but I like to use image sequences. So all you have to do is just click here and go to Load Image. Okay, so I've loaded up the Explode video that I made of Apple Soldier, which is an MP4 video, which is 1280 by 720. So it's going to fit really nicely here into our little 16:9 monitor that we did. So what we want to do now is actually click here on the file name and go into the Animation tab, and you notice that already by default it's already set up the start frame and the end frame and the frame rate. Now in your case, if these settings here have not been set, then you need to set your movie frame rate to the correct frames per second rate that your footage is set to, and then you need to hit calculate, and automatically it will determine how many frames are in your video. Then we need to go down and click on the editor, and we need to say animate preview. This way we can actually see the video playing in the viewport. So then we'll just take our material here, and I actually need to name this to movie screen. And we'll drag this here over to the cube. And at first it looks like it's all black, and the reason for that is because this material, if you notice the selection here, there's nothing in that box. So we need to take our selection tag that we made and drag that down to selection. Now I'm going to just kind of take my timeline from 90 frames up to maybe 600 maybe. And we'll just play through this a little bit. And there we go, now it's showing up. 6 ways to explode someone. Okay, so what if you want to use this with the explode plugin? Well, it's pretty simple and straightforward. Let's take and make sure that all of our materials are on our object. So let's take this over here, and this needs to be placed first, because Cinema 4D, when it goes to render and when it goes to read information here in the object manager, it starts at the top and works its way to the bottom in that order, and over here it's going to read from left to right. So I always usually place the main material here on that's going to be for the body on the left, and then we'll place this one here for the screen, since it's got a set selection to the right of that selection tag. And usually, since we're using the explode plugin, we can actually go a little further, and let's double click this selection tag, and that will select that polygon that we selected. And what we need to do is go to selection, invert. That's going to invert the selection for us, and now the body of the monitor is selected. Be sure that you deselect this tag. You see the orange box around it. We need to deselect that. Click the cube again, make another set selection, and this one is going to be called body. Here is our body material. We'll just drag it over here to the right, drag that selection tag down into the selection area there, and now we have our body material and our screen material all set up with the correct selections. Now to use this with the explode plugin is very simple. Just call up the explode plugin, and the number of parts, I'm going to keep this real simple. Let's just go maybe like 15 parts, or we'll go a little bit more, maybe 25. So we have an inside material. Now the inside material, like I showed in my other video tutorial, the inside material is going to be what's going to be on the inside that you can't see until it explodes. So for right now, we'll just make it a really bright red color. Like that. Okay, so we'll take this material here, and we're going to rename it to inside. Let's drag that into the inside mat parameter there. I'm going to use a fracture object. Make sure you select the object, go to add. It's going to add our thinking particles, and then you click scatter. Just like that. Now, we actually need to get rid of those particles, so we'll click on clear. Let's go back to the beginning. Alright, so here is our explode pieces, and you can see that each object now has 3 materials applied to it: the video material, the body material, and the inside red material. So now if we grab a piece and pull it out, just like that. And of course, if we play through this, the video will still play, and what I'll do is I'll grab this big chunk right here and pull it out. And we'll just kind of play forward here. And you can see that even though the piece has been pulled out, it's still, the video is still playing on it. Just like that. Alright, so I hope that answers the question about how to apply video to an object and how to do it with the Explode plugin as well. Alright, so that concludes this part. In the next part, we're going to be going over some other questions that I've been getting.